Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Saeed Daneshmand, Dr. Susanna Park here, and welcome to this session. And what we really want to do is open the floor to your questions and answer the questions that you have. I know you've had a lot of information thrown at you today. There's a lot of probably questions still in your mind. And we can talk about some of the aspects of egg donor selection, surrogate selection, chromosome screening, and whether that's really necessary when you use an egg donor in terms of PGS. But what we want to do today is open the floor to your questions. You know about us, San Diego Fertility Center. Our center's been around for about 28 years. A significant portion of our work is helping intended fathers create their families. And really it's an honor to accompany you in your journeys. I think what Dr. Park alluded to in our last session was we're a center that's going to support you throughout your journey. And I think you should also find agencies, attorneys that are going to do the same. I think it's creating a team that's going to support you. Sometimes most of the time things go very smoothly, but sometimes there are some obstacles, and having a center, having an agency that supports you during some of those difficult times, I think are very key. So, having said that, we're going to alternate questions, and please don't hesitate to ask anything you wish.
And the slide is if you wanted to contact us afterwards. Our Westoby is Richard Westoby, who lives in London, and he works for us, and he has a set of twins through egg donor surrogacy, and he authored a book about it that many people use as a resource. So please feel free to email him if you wanted information about his book, or if you wanted more information about our center, or to schedule a consultation. So you've been lectured at all day. Now it's your turn to ask us any questions you have, as simple as they can be, as complex as they are, it doesn't matter. This is your time. So, questions?
So, there are some of the people we talk to are like their agencies, they're full service, they would say, okay, these are our preferred vendors, basically. And so the part that's confusing for us, or for me at least, is like, do we go that route and kind of just blindly, somewhat following their recommendations, or do we go a la carte picking and say, we like working with you, do you have a list of providers, do you have any sort of insights?
And that's a great question. So my answer to you is going to be, you should interview all the preferred vendors, and then if you meet anybody at this conference that they mentioned, that you felt like, I really liked this agency or this clinic, but it's not on their list, go with your gut, right? Because when they say preferred, that doesn't always mean higher success rate, but maybe they have a great working relationship or good friendship, and historically they've always sort of sent intended parties back and forth. But in the end, it's not about who they're comfortable working with. It's about who you're comfortable working with, right? And if you say to this clinic or agency, well, I know this is your list, but I actually want to work with that clinic and it's not on the list, and they say to you, we're not comfortable with that, that's a red flag, right? Because it's not like any of us are doing something unique or different. I mean, pretty much the same thing. I mean, I can honestly tell you that all the clinics here, all the agencies here are great. It's just really a matter of chemistry. And if you feel that, I just got a funny sense from them, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, that's your body telling you it's not a good match. Okay, but you may love their preferred vendors, like, I like it, and that makes it easy because they're used to working with them, they can email them easily, they get great feedback.
When you say preferred vendor, it's the surrogacy agency?
It can go either way. It can be a surrogacy agency giving you a list of clinics, or it could be a clinic giving you a list of preferred lawyers, preferred surrogacy agencies. It can go either way.
So you guys have preferred vendors as well, I believe?
I think one of the most important things with that is that I think you start off with your clinic. You start off with having your doctor. And also doctors who have a lot of experience in the area of surrogacy. Why? Because they're going to have a lot of experience with different agencies, different attorneys. So I think if you start off with a clinic, for example, for us, there are 5 physicians. We have a significant degree of experience in surrogacy dating all the way back to 17 years ago. That was one of our first surrogacy cases. So we've worked with every surrogacy agency you see here, every attorney you see here, we worked with every one of them. And you can talk to them about their experience with us. But I think starting with your doctor and then gaining a little bit more of understanding and saying, you know, I just met with this surrogacy agency on Sunday. What do you think? What's been your experience with the surrogacy agency? Have they been organized, reactive in terms of, you know, answering your questions? Have they been supportive with different intended parents? I think starting off there is a good spot. And I think having, like Dr. Park said, having that chemistry with your clinic, having that chemistry with your doctor, it's really important. You're gonna be with that doctor for a while until your pregnancy is beyond 10 weeks and even beyond that. I mean, both of us have a bond with our parents for forever. You know, we have Christmas cards, we have emails that we get, and you know, with kids, you know, twins and singletons, and they're 10 years old and 7 years old and 15, and that's why we're so passionate about it. I think it's just wonderful. What greater profession can you have where you can have an opportunity and be blessed enough to be able to create a family? So I think starting off with your clinic is a really good idea.
But it also depends, right? Like, I was raised in Argentina, so I speak Spanish, right? So I get a lot of Spanish-speaking IPs from Spain, Argentina. When they come to me, I'm not going to refer them to surrogacy agency where I know there's nobody there who speaks Spanish fluently. Yeah, they can get a translator, but I'll refer them to, like, we're in San Diego, so Maria Valencia at ISC, because she's fluent in Spanish, as are many of her coordinators. So a lot also depends on the intended parent, what I think will give them the easiest journey. Does that make sense? And yeah.
So you like all these preferred vendors. What makes you guys stand out from all of them?
Nothing. No, honestly, nothing.
Well,
I mean, fertility clinics are fertility clinics, and honestly, like all the clinics at this conference really are excellent. So, you know, when things go well, great, right? Oh, you had a first trimester, you had your baby, happy, right? Positive reviews, right? So do you really care what the success rate is of the clinic? Who cares? You had your baby. It's when things don't go well, right? All of a sudden you're like, well, why am I not hearing that from them? Why is there no follow-up? I feel so unsupported. I feel like now they're too busy for me. And that's when you are going to kick yourself for not having gone to the clinic or the agency that you got told you should have gone to. Maybe your friend went to that one, but your gut said, no, you go with this one. But you went to that one because your friend went to that one. So it's really when things don't go well, that's when you know who your true friends are, right? And it's the same with the clinic or agency. When things don't go well, you really want to get a sense of who's going to really support me, who's going to make sure they see me through the end of this journey. And that's how really you should pick your clinic or agency. And I know it's hard to tell by just talking to people, but sometimes you just get a gut feeling, right?
yes.
One of the confusing messages that I've had through this conference is essentially there's a lot of gay dads who've gone through it who have had twins.
Right.
But then there's been a message of like having twins is like elevated risk. I'm a twin myself, and like I like the idea of having a twin. Also, just the cost, like going through another surrogacy would be quite expensive. It's been sort of a little bit unclear to me, like what is the actual risk of going with like a twin or two double embryo transfer? Like, is it just that there's more likely to be complications, medical complications that increase the cost, or is it more likely that both babies won't go to term? Like, it's unclear what is the major risk.
So when you look at twins as compared to singletons, there are a few higher risk factors. One is preterm labor, which is the biggest one. Diabetes, high blood pressure. So all of those risk factors are elevated. So whereas, let's say, in a singleton gestation, the risk of gestational diabetes is 1%, in a twin gestation it's 15%. So those are the differences. Now,
Is that fraternal or identical, or doesn't matter?
it doesn't matter in a twin gestation. But with identical twins, the risk of miscarriage are a little bit higher. So the risk of complications sometimes, especially if they share one amniotic sac, then you have much more significant potential complications. But that is beyond our control because that's essentially one embryo that splits into two. And the rate of that happening in vitro fertilization is roughly just below 1%. If you look at twins in general, about 65 to 70% of twins are born at or near term. Near term meaning 36 to 37 weeks of gestation. About 25% of twins are born between 32 and 36 weeks, and we call that mild to moderate prematurity. Most of those twins do just fine with the latest technology intensive care unit. The ones we worry about are roughly about 5 to 7% that are born below 32 weeks of gestation. And they can have more complications. We had fathers in France, for example. Their twins were born at 29 weeks. They spent 42 days in the hospital. The first year of their lives was a difficult one in terms of sleep and feeding and other gastrointestinal factors. And now, they're past that, difficult stage, and they're about close to 2 years of age, and they're doing great. So the risks of twins, and that's why you hear sort of this theme of, single embryo transfer is better, less risky, less risky. Yes, it is. Despite the fact that majority of twins still do well, you can't eliminate that risk factor for prematurity, even if you select. We can reduce the risk a little bit by selecting the best surrogate, the most ideal surrogate, in great physical shape, someone who's had vaginal deliveries, good sized babies, somebody who has a good support network, where we have vigilant follow-up in terms of seeing a perinatalogist, a high-risk pregnancy specialist, but we can't eliminate the risk of prematurity. So we have a discussion with you about double embryo transfer. We talk about the risk, we talk about the surrogate potentially that we want to work with if we're going to do a double embryo transfer. And it's like anything. I mean, you are going to make a decision with your partner in terms of whether you feel comfortable enough, to take potentially that risk. But I completely understand the desire for wanting to have twins, because if you want to have 2 children, then you've achieved your goal in one pregnancy, given the fact that this process is inexpensive.
We're one of the few clinics that still chooses to transfer 2, because for most of us, in our experience, most of our twins have really gone well. But again, you guys are adults, this is an informed decision. We can't guarantee things will go well, but usually they do.
Would the pre-clinic screening or anything like that mitigate any of the risks or potential complications with twins, or is this just purely a pregnancy issue?
Correct. So a lot of these twins, they're chromosomally normal, so that's why they made it this far. So this is solely just because there's just more than one baby in the uterus.
How important it is for either the donor or surrogate to be close to the clinic, and how often do they visit, I guess, other than...
It's not really critical for the donor or the surrogate to be close to the clinic, frankly, because we have great colleagues. And one of the great things about the group of people you see out there and colleagues is that we have good relationships with them. So if Oregon Reproductive Medicine has if they're doctors who we were friends with, they have a donor in San Diego, we can monitor that donor for them. We can send them the information. If we have a donor or a surrogate in Oregon, they monitor for us. And we have colleagues all across the United States. And we can trust in their interpretation and their ultrasounds and their blood work. And so we trust in one another, we collaborate with one another. And I think that's so much more important than this sort of sense of competition. Because all of us have achieved a certain level of success, we're busy, we want to take care of you, and we want to have you have a great journey. And if it turns out that they may be a better center for you because of some reasons in terms of location, then absolutely, we'll work with them, collaborate with them. So it's really not that important. There are agencies out there that are on the East Coast, and we've had terrific collaborations with them. The key thing is making sure you have the right surrogate and the right egg donor, irrespective of where they're located.
So your egg donor injects every day for about 10 days, give or take a day or two, and during that time she gets about 4 or 5 ultrasounds. So let's say she lives in New York. She'll monitor in New York for the first 4, and then when she gets close, you then have to pay for her to get on a flight, and usually with a companion. And then you have to pay for their hotel, their food, etc. But they're in San Diego 4 days, maybe 5. So they come, we make sure she's ready, we harvest, she recovers, and she gets on a plane and she goes back. For the surrogate, and that's in a week and a half span. So it's frequent, a lot, but short. A surrogate is the opposite, infrequent, once a week, and prolonged over like 5 weeks. So she monitors where she lives, once a week, easy. And then she flies to San Diego for her transfer. The day before, we transfer, next day she's on the plane and she's out. Because otherwise, there's no The longer she stays, the more your expense is going to increase unnecessarily.
What's the harvesting like?
You know, it's funny you say that. My laptop, I have a video of it, but I didn't bring it. It's really cool. It's really cool. So one, it was mentioned in the talk, they're sedated. Well, we give anesthesia. So she's asleep, so she feels no pain during it, but she does go home with narcotics. And then we do a vaginal ultrasound with the probes in her vagina. I know that sounds weird, but it's the best way to look at somebody's ovaries. And then on that probe, there's a needle connected to it. And so, you know in the lecture, you can see the big black circles, the follicles? So you put that on the screen, and then you push a needle along the probe, literally from the vagina, right into the ovary, right into the follicle. And you can literally see on the ultrasound the needle going through. And then you put it in a suction machine, and you literally see the black circle deflating. And then the fluid goes through a tubing, which goes into a test tube, which we hand off to an embryologist. It takes us 30 minutes. So there's no scar in her abdomen. And she recovers pretty quickly. It's pretty amazing.
Yes. And one of the things that we always do with egg donors is after the retrieval is done and when they're more alert in the recovery room, we thank them from the bottom of our hearts. And a lot of times you guys will send them a letter, sometimes even flowers, and we give them those letters and flowers at the time because they're helping create families. And yes, they get compensated for it, but it's something even deeper than that. It's something from the heart. So it's an amazing journey for them too.